Academic misconduct. Students have heard this term and they know it's bad, but students are not always sure what it means. In the ESL program, there are two types of academic misconduct: cheating and plagiarism. To help you understand what these two terms mean, and to avoid being accused of either, let's look at them in more detail. We'll start with cheating, since most people are clearer about this definition. We're all aware of ways of cheating in daily life. Maybe when playing a card game or at sports. But what about in school? Simply put, cheating is copying someone else's answers or work. Some examples of academic cheating are using a cell phone, computer, or watch to electronically communicate answers to another student, communicating in any way with another student, bringing notes into an exam, copying answers from another student. And it's important to note that copying includes allowing others to copy from you either in or outside the classroom. Both people would be guilty in this case. There are countless other examples and ways of cheating, but I think we have a good idea about what is and is not cheating. But what about plagiarism? This one is a little more difficult to understand. The first thing I want to stress is that plagiarism isn't just found in academic settings. There have been instances of plagiarism in politics, journalism, and pop culture. This has resulted in embarrassment and sometimes loss of credibility and employment. In many cases, plagiarism has cost the plagiarizer a lot of money. So what is plagiarism exactly? A simple definition of plagiarism is using another's work as your own. Some obvious or well-known examples of plagiarism are directly quoting someone without giving them credit, paraphrasing or summarizing without giving credit, using someone else's photo, diagram, image, music, or video without giving them credit, copying large portions of a paper or work, like a video or a song, buying a paper online from another person and putting your name on it, or handing in someone else's work as your own. But some lesser-known instances of plagiarism are using a paper you wrote for another class or in another country and handing it in, writing one paper and handing it in to multiple classes, taking portions of a paper you already wrote and putting it in the new paper, or working together with someone and handing in the same text. In all instances of plagiarism, the penalties vary from a grade deduction to a 0 on the assignment, a 0 in the class, or expulsion from, being asked to leave or kicked out of, your school. So if plagiarism is wrong and the penalties are so severe, what motivates people to plagiarize? In the past, students have suggested people plagiarize because of lack of confidence, lack of knowledge, lack of motivation or laziness, poor time management, focusing only on the grade and not the knowledge, so they just want the mark but don't want to learn the content, fear of failure, fear of disappointing their parents or other important people like partners or sponsors. And sometimes it's simply because the student doesn't understand plagiarism, so he or she doesn't know they are plagiarizing. Occasionally, a student plagiarizes because he or she likes the idea of getting away with it. They feel the risk is worth the thrill. So we've covered what plagiarism is, the penalty, and the reasons. The question instructors often get is, why such a fuss? It's just an essay, isn't it? Does it really matter if it's only my professor reading it? Granted, usually it is only your professor reading your paper. But the underlying reason why plagiarism is taken so seriously is it reflects what kind of person and student you are. When a person intentionally or on purpose plagiarizes, it shows that he or she is not interested in learning. They just want to finish their degrees in whatever way possible and get on with life. But let's look at real-world examples. What happens after post-secondary studies to see why plagiarism is taken seriously? Most importantly, it's about integrity and credibility. If someone has education, we expect them to have knowledge. We wouldn't want to be in a structure built by someone who didn't learn the skills to build it, and we certainly wouldn't trust a doctor who didn't learn about medicine. Preventing plagiarism is also about respect. If we borrow from someone else, we need to give them credit. Think of it this way. If you spent a long time and a lot of work creating something, you'd want to get credit for it. You'd be quite upset if someone else took your ideas and used them as their own. So how can we avoid being suspected of plagiarism? Luckily, there are things students can do to protect themselves. The first piece of advice is to keep everything. Keep your notes, your research, all the drafts of your work. This is proof that you did the work. Also, you will need to learn to properly integrate quotations and cite your sources. This is a skill that takes some practice, and you may need to ask your instructor, a librarian, or someone at the Global Learning Center for help. You can watch the tutorial about quotations and citations for more information on how to properly integrate and cite research. If you have any doubts about your work, do not be afraid to contact your instructor before the assignment is due.